Martha?
Hi everyone and good afternoon. I am Nathan Season, the coordinator of the FEU Career and Placement. Hi everyone and good afternoon. I am Nathan.
Martha?
Hi everyone and good afternoon. I am Nathan Season, the coordinator of the FEU Career and Placement Office. Welcome to another round of Pep Talk, the Pre-Employment Preparation Talk webinar series. This is already our 10th episode. So Pep Talk is a regular virtual series designed to prepare the graduating students for employment by equipping them with the necessary knowledge through talks touching on various topics delivered by industry professionals and experts. And on your screens now, you can see our previous Pep Talk webinars. You may rewatch them on your most convenient time at the Career and Placement official Facebook page. Today's webinar is being live streamed via Microsoft Teams. We are also live via FEU and the CAPO official Facebook pages. To participate in our question and answer part later this afternoon, you may submit your comments and questions anytime at our conversation page, which can be found at the right side of your screen if you're using a desktop, or at the live Q&A tab if you're using a mobile phone or other portable device. Likewise, for our viewers on Facebook live streaming, you may also post your questions on the comment section as well. For most of us, we usually associate the final completion of our academic journey upon finishing our bachelor's degree in university, right? However, there are also some who wishes to go further and pursue higher education, such as taking up their masters and after that their PhDs. This can be quite challenging, especially in the Philippine context where practicality-wise, one is expected to prioritize saving up first before pursuing any other things. The good news is that there are numerous scholarship opportunities being offered around the world. That's why for our Pep Talk 10, our topic is in search for scholarships abroad. So please stick with us until the end of the program because you will surely learn a lot. And by the way, I'd just like to remind everyone to please make sure that your microphones are on mute, especially during the lecture proper to avoid causing any unnecessary noise. Thank you for your cooperation and enjoy the rest of the program. And now, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, may I call on the Director of the Career and Placement Office to give her opening remarks. Please welcome to your screens Ms. Maria Carmencita Suva Alfonso. Ma'am, the screen is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Nathan, and good afternoon, everyone. Our distinguished speaker, our Vice President, Mr. Joven Castro, deans, faculty members, students, and co-employees. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking a time out of your busy schedule to join us today. The recent academic year showed us a preview of how things will be even after the pandemic, where many might be able to cope with easily, some may endure hardships. As we shift to a new paradigm, adapting to the so-called new normal will largely depend on how prepared we are, especially our graduates. With this, the FEU Career and Placement Office, or CAPO, has designed a 13-part series webinar to give the students the basics of working and finding a job amidst the new normal. We also have prepared and migrated online all other CAPO activities designed to help prepare our graduates for the new world of work. Online mock interview and coaching last July, online exclusive recruitment last August, and the student exposure to industries this coming November, to name a few. We shall be posting all this in the official FEU social media sites and Canvas. So please check out our event posters and calendars. Let me show you a short video clip of Capo's lineup of activities for the rest of the year. Video, please. 10th episode titled In Search for Scholarships Abroad, we are grateful to have an alumna to share her insights based from experience. I'm sure for those who are thinking of pursuing higher studies, this will inspire and motivate you to start looking for schools and scholarships abroad so that there will be no more what ifs. Capo believes that this topic should be discussed to prepare our graduates and give them a better perspective of the world they are facing, one that is no longer the same as it was a few months back. Jobs may be scarce. You can either put up your own business or retool yourself by taking certification courses or pursuing higher studies to have an edge and be more qualified for employment in the new normal world of work. And while it is not going to be easy to sort out the challenges in this new paradigm that we are in, always remember the mantra, be brave, because Tamaraos have always been resilient to whatever comes their way. And now, without further ado, allow me to introduce our speaker. She is the capability lead for customer experience domain for Oracle IPS in Accenture Technology. She used to be a legislative staff for former Senator Paolo Benigno Bangokino IV, a national campaign volunteer for Vice President Leni Robredo during the 2016 elections. She was also a former media and communications officer for Go Negosyo. Had an experience on TV as floor director and writer for Itbulaga, as well as in the academic world as she also taught marketing communications in FEU. She finished her Master of Entrepreneurship and Innovation in Swinburne University of Technology, Melbourne, Australia in 2018, a recipient of Australia Award Scholarship in January 2017, and one of the 10 outstanding students of the National Capital Region in 2009. She graduated from Far Eastern University, Manila, BA Mass Communication, magna cum laude, and one of FEU's 10 outstanding senior students in 2009. She is a former FEU student leader and Tamaraw volunteer. A person who's very passionate about micro, small, and medium enterprise or MSME development in the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to your screens Mr. Mina Akram. Mina, thank you very much for being here this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Miss Babes and Nathan. I'm very honored to be invited again by FU Career and Placement Office. I feel so excited whenever someone from FU reaches out to me and asks me to share my story. This time around, my personal story when I lived overseas and studied abroad. So I'm very excited to share with you some of the tips and things that I have learned from the experience, and hopefully you can have or set your own journey somewhere else in the world. So let me start off. Next slide. So Miss Babes mentioned all about me already, but yeah, I work in corporate right now. It's only been a year since I moved to corporate. I used to be involved very much in government work, NGO work with Go Negosyo. I also did two national campaigns, 2016 and 2019. And then I also did television production work with Itbulaga when I after graduation. So that was my first job. And then I graduated with a degree in mass communication in 2009 in FEU, so proud Tamaraw here. I'm a former student leader. I am all over the place during my time in college. The joke during that time is ang course ko daw ay BA in org, minor in mass communication kasi halos lahat ng activities and yung mga events, I'll always be a part of it or volunteer to be a part of it. I received my Australia Award scholarship in 2016. But my uplift to Australia didn't happen until January of 2017. I did my MA in entrepreneurship and innovation at Swinburne University of Technology in Melbourne, Australia. So yeah, next slide. So maybe most of you are asking yourself or probably asking yourself in the future, why study again? And now that we are spending so much more of our time, at home, having so much time to think about your next plan or your next move, you might also be considering about taking the further step and pursuing higher education. So let me share with you my personal story. It started off after graduation. I was actually identifying a list or making a list of the things that I want to achieve before I turn 25. because I don't like making long-term plans. Usually, I make short-term plans, and with during that time, I wanted to make 5 years lang as a period where I can check and validate and assess my list. And then during that time, one of the things that I put on my personal list is to have an MA. Because I was a student leader in FEU, I was very much exposed with people or my peers aspiring to have or to gain higher education. But during that time, my only motivation was I know I can do something more because I always go for what's extra. So ever since in college, I always want to be involved because I know that I can't be complacent, and whenever I'm not doing something, it makes me feel unusual. At the same time, it was only yung height no interest ko into going for an MA started when I worked with Go Negosyo. I was doing media and communications work for Go Negosyo. And my exposure to MSME development started during that time. So from mass comm, nag-shift ako to being so much interested with the SME industry in the Philippines. So I wanted to infuse my lessons and the learnings that I got from being a communications graduate, infusing it to helping our MSMEs in the country. So initially during that time, I just wanted to learn more of the fundamentals and the theoretical backgrounds that I might be needing in order to fulfill my work better. So I needed to learn something and be credible enough to do the work that I do. During the time, I was considering something local. I was actually trying to apply in an institution in the Philippines. So I was looking into a marketing communications program in LaSalle during that time. Kasi I'm not sure if there's a MA in Com nung FEU nung time na yon. So I think wala pa. So I was considering LaSalle. I had the recommendation letters already. But the only challenge for doing something of a local higher education or local MA is your challenge in time and resources. So usually most of the Filipinos who pursue higher education within the Philippines are challenged because they had to work or they have to work on the side. At the same time, they have to divide their times with, spending it with family and then fulfilling their role. Some of them might be breadwinners. At the same time, spending time for you to be able to earn so that you can pay for your education or pay for yourself. So during the time, it was a struggle for me. I was so ready. In 2015, when I was still in Go Negosyo, there were a group of graduates from Australia who approached our organization and asked us for help because they wanted to do a project for MSME development. And I was curious and then I asked them, so how did you gain your MA in Australia? And they told me about Australia Awards during that time. And that's where my interest into finding scholarship abroad grew. So initially, I was looking, syempre, of course, into Australia Awards, but I did look for several opportunities available for Filipino students. I checked Chevening Scholarship. I even checked Harvard. All the other, I even checked Erasmus Mundus. Some of the available opportunities that Filipino students can avail of. But I guess yung reason ko of studying overseas are a couple of different factors. So next slide. Here are my 4 reasons on why I wanted to do it overseas. So I needed something that's free, so no cost at all on my end. So I won't be able to spend a single cent. Probably I will spend for winter clothes, yan, pero not really on the education itself. And during that time, Australia Awards was the most generous in terms of offering. So I considered Australia Awards during that time, and I needed something that would provide me, a fun experience. At the same time, I would have freedom, because I'll be living independently in another country in an unusual place. At the same time, di ba meron tayong common notion or like we are programmed as Filipinos to look higher to people who have attained their higher education or even their bachelor's degree overseas. So there's this certain mindset within us that would tell us, oh, he or she is something more because he or she has done it in another country, and that's a totally different educational setup. It's quite challenging. So I needed to to take something that would help me in the future. So to build my marketability as a person, as a professional. So I started looking into Australia Awards. And one backstory, siguro, I think when I got my scholarship, it was also a perfect timing for me because in 2016, I was on a high during the first period, the first quarter, because Vice President Lenny Robredo won the elections, and I was part of the national campaign during that time. So I was really on a high because we made mother, a single mom, win the elections, the national elections against seasoned politicians. So imagine the energy and the rush during those first quarter of 2016 until the time that after she was proclaimed, my mom got sick and eventually it led to her death. So my mom died July of 2016, and during that time, I was so sad and I needed to get away. So good thing the scholarship offer came a few months after my mom died. So it was really also a perfect timing for me. I'm not sure if you will have the same experience, but I think regardless of whenever you want to take that particular MA, but for me it had an additional meaning because I needed to get away and move on. So come 2017, I was sent to Australia to study. I studied in Australia with a degree in I took up MA in entrepreneurship and innovation primarily because my interest to MSME development grew when I was in Go Negosyo. And during that time, I was into practical applications already of media and communication aspects. So I needed to learn something more so that I can make myself more marketable for future opportunities that I might look into once I go back to the Philippines. So I take my MA and then I went to Australia for 20 months. I stayed there. So I lived in another country for 20 months. And it was in August 2018 that I went back to Manila. So later on, I will share some bits and pieces of my personal experiences while I was staying there. So let me start off with a couple of tips on how you can also experience the same thing that I experienced. Working and then being sent to another country, gaining another level of education, and going back and potentially being open up to opportunities that can make myself, go higher or climb up the corporate ladder or things like depending on your intention. So number one, that thing that you need to do. So I hope you have your notepads and your pens ready. So number one that you need to do is next slide is be clear with your intent and do your research. So remember I told you I wanted to do my MA, but it has to be something of free. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to provide me with freedom. So being away. So for you, you have to identify your intent of why you are doing the MA or why you want to find scholarships abroad. And those can be a variety of different reasons. It can be, oh, you wanted to gain a deeper understanding of your current course or the current programs that you are aligned with. Can also be, oh, you have families overseas. Probably you want to spend time and at the same time hit two birds with one stone and study anyway. So you have to be clear on your intent because after that, once you are clear with your intent of going overseas and finding opportunities for scholarships abroad, you need to do your research. Research is very important in terms of finding scholarship kasi it really depends on how wide you look into the available resources and the technicalities of the scholarship itself para din mas malaki yung chance mo of winning it. Kumbaga. So do your research. Number one is check what is available out there and do a comparative analysis. As I've mentioned earlier, there are a lot of scholarship opportunities, thousands, not really thousands, probably like less than 100 opportunities for Filipinos to avail of in terms of scholarships. It can be given by a foundation, like an institution like Australia Awards, the Embassy of the UK, or it can also be via the university itself. Most universities overseas actually have offerings in terms of scholarships. You just need to find out and research kung ano yung that would fit your intent. So once you have researched and gathered all of the necessary information that you need, you need to do a comparative analysis. And with that, you also need to identify your negotiables and non-negotiables. What do I mean by that? So you have to identify certain set of parameters that, for your negotiables, probably you are quite flexible, and then non-negotiable, hindi pwedeng wala yun. So like for example, ano yung mga examples? So my personal experience, my non-negotiable was cost. So I needed to take something that's free and would not cost me a single cent. So for some people who might have the luxury of support from family, or probably they have another financial sources, possible na medyo negotiable yung cost. So you need to identify ano yung mga negotiables and non-negotiables nyo. Some of the factors that you can actually include in those lists are, of course, cost, degree. Are you flexible in terms of like yung degree? Because the degrees being offered overseas are not the same with the usual course structure in the Philippines. There are ngayon nauuso na yung mga fusion courses, like for example, environmental engineering. So things like that, na totally different streams of specialization, but overseas institutions are actually combining and putting together these specializations. Tapos mahilig sila mag-create ng mga new specializations kasi. So you need to identify kung negotiable ka ba in terms of the degree. School, like do you want to study on top universities? Like yung world ranking ba of the university matters to you or not? Weather, so you need to consider weather. Are you the type of person? I know some of you may have experienced winter during one or two of your vacations, but that's a totally different thing. You experience winter in a week and you're there for fun. But if you experience winter in a long term, that has a totally different effect on you emotionally and mentally, because the sun sets very early. At 4, the sun is already setting. At 5, it's totally dark. It's very hard to study because you feel like it's already nighttime anyway. So weather, school, location, country. So there are many set of variables that you need to consider. And then you need to identify what are the things that you are quite flexible and what are the things that you cannot let go. So once you have identified all of that, you need to shortlist based on the results so that you are not spreading yourself too thin. And then you can focus your deeper research on the items that would fit your intent. So like for example, you've built a formula. So for me during the time, I don't care where it is as long as it's free. I want to live in a first world country because I want to experience it. I want to go to a place where English is being spoken, so I won't feel uncomfortable dealing with my professors and classmates. Even though English is quite universal, even in the European institutions, there's still a certain level of comfort being in a place na alam mo na you can speak freely to anyone. Tapos, during the time, I'm also considering something close to the Philippines. So whenever I feel homesick, like I can probably consider going home, or my family and friends can visit me. And during the time, Australia is just, Melbourne in particular is just an 8-hour flight to Manila. So it was easier for me to invite friends to come over whenever I feel lonely. So yun, and then English in general yung i-speak nila na language. So those are the things that you need to consider at the very start before even, making a move and starting your application. So next slide. Siguro quick tip lang. You can always have it all during the first few parts of the intent of applying for scholarships. So you need to have a plan, different plan A, B, Z. So A to Z. Kailangan marami kayong combinations of plans, and yung mga parameters na set nyo, you need to have you need to combine and mix and match, kasi hindi talaga, there's no one institution or scholarship that could offer you like the best of the best. There will always be compromise. But one tip siguro that I can give you, kasi I did my MA when I was already in the Senate. It was my first year in the Senate. And during the time, I already had 7.5 years worth of work experience. So one tip that I can give you is having a reasonable amount of work experience is ideal prior to applying. It's not necessarily required for some institutions, but some institutions would still find more value for people who have had work experience in the past. And then, additionally, once you are more experienced, siguro may experience ka na with different companies, different institutions, you can actually provide more meaning and deeper insights whenever you converse or engage with your professors in class. So yun yung advantage of having work experience. But again, no one is stopping you in terms of like if you want to go straight from college, go to another country and do your scholarship or do your MA or and then eventually do your PhD. There's no one stopping you. But I'm just saying a personal tip and tips from people, my friends who have actually graduated and did scholarships abroad as well. Meron talagang value into bringing certain work experience with you whenever you attend those classes. The next part of the tip that I want to give you, next slide, is once you have identified or shortlist yung mga different items that you are flexible or you cannot let go, it has to be there. You need to get familiarized with the process of the application or the scholarship grant that you're trying to eye and comply. Kasi at the end of the day, it's you who are trying to get into the program, not them parang tapping you, oh, mag-aral ka sa amin. Di ba? Wala namang ganon. So, you need to get familiar with their process. Isa din, siguro nakalimutan ko lang i-mention kanina, isa rin na sa mga negotiables and non-negotiables that you also need to consider is return of service. Kasi there are scholarships abroad na that would require you to go back to the Philippines right away and you cannot stay in that particular country. There are scholarship offers that would allow you to stay in that particular country and explore work opportunities within that particular country or within that particular region. There are also some limitations like there are countries who wouldn't allow international students to have work experience while they are studying. They are not allowed to work. During the time, hindi ko, not explicitly, but ideally, Australia is allowing their students to work at least or a maximum of 20 hours per week per semester. So, if you're the type na parang, oh, you can manage, multiple things in your plate, you can actually avail of a part-time job and earn a bit of money because Australia pays around $20 per hour. So not so bad, diba? So if you have work experience in a day for 4 hours, that's still $80 worth of money to buy groceries and or if you're sending money home, you can actually send that particular amount of money to your family. Going back, so again, you need to be familiar with the process of the scholarship that you are eyeing, the scholarship grant, and comply. So you need to be very organized, you need to prioritize, you need to follow their timelines, and at the same time, set your personal deadlines because all of the scholarship offers that's available in the market right now would have certain set of pre-identified timelines already. So, ang tip ko lang sa inyo is wag nyo siyang sagarin towards the end, yung talagang nearing the deadline na. Kasi, mas mahirapan kayo mag-adjust kasi yung next tip ko would have kumaga connection to that. So you need to be organized with all of the things that you need to do. So again, iba-iba yung requirements ng mga different institutions. Like for example, shielding scholarships would actually would need you to be to gain a master's degree in the Philippines first before you can apply for a shielding scholarship overseas. Kasi meron silang scoring system on the degree. Tapos meron pa mga instances na there are certain universities in the Philippines that won't include our institution as an official, provide an official education institution na they can honor the grades or the diploma. So you need to get familiarized with those certain processes and you need to comply and adjust your timelines and adjust your priorities based on what they are requiring of you. The next part of that is you need to have a clear value proposition and position yourself to that will make you or allow you to stand out among the other applicants. Because at the end of the day, most scholarship organizations would have certain limits or quota or a certain number of kumbaga, certain number of offers only. Like some scholarship would say like, oh, we have only 10 slots for this year. So with that, you need to find a certain aspect within you that you can actually highlight during your application. And then at the same time, you also need to, kumbaga parang, try to research on how, in terms of like thinking, paano ba mag-isip ang yung mga Europeans? Like, what do they value the most? And then, paano mag-isip yung mga Americans? Kasi at the end of the day, they will be the one assessing your application. And you need to get your message across that this is me, like what I can bring to the Philippines or to your organization or to the scholarship institution once I was able to finish my studies. So yeah, you need to have kumbaga parang sort of a personal branding of who you are. So that's once that so by the time that you send your application, yun yung lalabas or ma-highlight in the documents that you send and even your personal interviews. Next slide. Another tip from those who have done it, be flexible. So again, you can always have the nicest offering. There will be compromises, and specifically, hindi kasi comparable yung personal experiences ko to whatever your personal experiences can be in the future once you have attained or gained a scholarship overseas. There will always be different. Siguro just a break from all of the tips, let me share with you some of my personal experiences para you get excited then to really consider and try or apply for scholarships overseas. So ano ba yung mga opportunities that you can actually, avail? Again, this is something very different to what my my batchmates experience, but generally, here are some of the opportunities that you can avail of. Next slide. So yeah, so I stayed in Australia for 20 months. So I guess it's one of the most memorable experience for me so far. If I had a choice, I would want to go back and live in Australia because I experienced some of the best kumbaga, treatment from other people. At the same time, it actually opened my point of view. Yung kasi we often compare ourselves to like the situation of first world countries. Whenever we go on vacations, like whenever we go to Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, or the other countries na first world, quite developed, we always compare our status in the Philippines, right? But once you have actually lived and experienced the culture and the scenarios and the environment within a first world country, you would actually realize na yes, they have access to a lot of the good things, but at the same time, they also have a different set of problems. And you can't always compare your personal problems, our personal problems we are experiencing in the Philippines to what they are experiencing. So for the past 20 months, all I did in Australia was, of course, study. Because at the end of the day, I was given a free scholarship and I didn't want to be a disappointment dun sa scholarship institution who gave me the grant. So at the end of the day, I was a student, so I was really studying. When I lived in Australia, I also had an opportunity to work part-time because the Australian International Student Visa allows me to work 20 hours per week, and during summer, I can work unlimited hours. Summer and winter breaks, I can work unlimited hours. So during my time, dun sa picture on the middle upper, I actually experienced working part-time for a cafe. So coffee is quite big in Melbourne. So they say they have the best coffee in the world. I kind of agree to that. So I had actually experienced working in hospitality. So I was a waitress in a neighborhood cafe during that time. At the same time, I cannot, take out the Bibo kid in me. And during my time in university, I also volunteered and joined the student union, which is their version of our student council. And through my involvement with the student union, I was able to volunteer and organize events with some of my friends in university, and I was able to meet people from other courses as well. And at the same time, being away and being in another country also allowed me to have an opportunity to explore and see the beauty of what the country has to offer. So during that time when I was in Australia, um, I also experienced driving on the other side of the road because yung manibela nila is on the right side. And then we visited a couple of states with my friends and my co-scholars who are also Filipinos. We visited a couple of states. We of course went to Sydney, and we even went to Tasmania. I was able to go to New Zealand, which is very near Australia. I did skydiving when I was in Australia. So opportunities to have fun and to learn were endless. And the fact that you are alone and you are on your own, it's you who will choose your own path, kumbaga, in a way. Aside from your responsibilities in your university, because at the end of the day, as I said, you are still a student. So those are the bits and pieces of my personal experience, and I hope you would also want to experience the same. Marami pa akong personal stories on what happened during my time. But so, because I had so much fun, I was actually crying in the airport when I had to leave. So I packed all my bags and had, yung LBC balikbayan box a month before I left. And then, so I had one luggage left. And then when I was in the airport about to get on the plane, I was literally crying because I can't, the experience was so, it got into me that I didn't want to leave. Anyway, going back to my tips. So again, research, be clear with your intent, identify your negotiables and non-negotiables, do your research, comply with the necessary requirements that being set by the scholarship foundation. The next part is the next slide is, so once you are into the application process, my next tip is be straight to the point. So whether in writing your essays, because some scholarship institutions would actually ask you to write essays or position papers, or some would actually allow you to come in and be interviewed. So regardless if it's verbal or written, you need to be straight to the point. But you always have to go back to the earlier tip na you need to identify your branding or the value that you bring into the application so that you will stand out among all the other applicants. Again, applying for scholarship, you will only have a limited opportunity to let them know who you are, what motivates you, your experiences, who your family is, where did you work, what was the work experience all about, and you as a person, you cannot really package them all in one essay or one interview. So since you have a very limited chance of getting your message across, you need to be straight to the point and simplify whatever you want to say in those applications. Because again, I think marami sa atin nakakalimot na there's beauty in simplicity. Kasi ako, I always want to do, extra, and I want to do more. But at the same time, yun nga, you'll have a limited chance to get the message across. So usually nga, most of the application process, meron pang word limit, di ba? Yung mga essays like 500 words only. So you need to identify or be careful in choosing the words and the flow and the message that you will put in those application forms. Next part, another tip is, next slide, is you need to consult. I think ako kasi I'm surrounded with a lot of mentors and a lot of the people who have shaped me to becoming who I am today. So regardless if it's like actual mentors, professional mentors, you can actually consult even your family members. Maybe, need to do a mock interview with your nanay or tatay. Maybe they have some thoughts on how you can package or sell yourself better. Don't overthink or overanalyze. You need to seek different points of views in terms of your application, because kasi ang nangyayari kasi most often is we get so involved with the process na we're so blinded with other point of views that could actually enrich your application. So you need to consult with your, even with your friends, do a peer review, ask them, oh, okay ba tong sabihin sa application ko? Is it okay that my hobby is extreme sports? So parang ganon. So, those are the things that at the end of the day, ikaw pa rin naman magde-decide what you write eh. But there's so much, value and insight once you consult with people. So that whenever you decide to take a shift or, veer away with your usual path, you know that you are guided by actual inputs from real people around you. So FU Career and Placement is one place where you can actually consult, like, right, Miss Babes? You can actually consult sina Nathan and ask them, ano ba yung proper path for you? Maybe your choice of course is not very relevant. It would actually be just a repetition of what you have did in college. Or probably it's a deeper pero hindi magiging diverse yung point of view mo right after you graduate. Maybe you need to take something more, like something very, very unusual so that you'll be challenged. And then you can actually, be better. And you can actually add more and more skills in your profile. So once you build your CV and your resume, once na bumalik ka na sa Pilipinas and offer your application to certain companies, it will not be, parang very linear in nature. So next slide is siguro towards the end na rin yung presentation ko. Be ready to invest and don't be afraid to fail. Invest. So scholarships abroad, unfortunately, there's a certain investment on our end. And that includes money, time, energy, brain cells, sleep, etc. Siguro highlight ko na lang yung money. Some of the organizations na nag-offer ng scholarship would require an English proficiency certification like TOEIC, IELTS, and those certifications actually expire every 2 years. Not sure the current scenario, but they have an expiration. So you need to invest in terms of taking those exams and those certifications, and you need to time it based on the personal deadlines that you have set for yourself. And of course, align with the deadlines of the scholarship grant that you are looking into. So, of course, you need to invest time. So you need to do your research, you need to write your essays, you need to spend your time studying kung ano ba yung perfect course that would actually that would be aligned to your intent. You will sometimes sacrifice sleep kasi like there's also time differences dun sa mga interviews probably. Like I had a friend na yung interview niya sa Harvard, he had the luxury of, resources. So he had to fly to Japan para hindi masyadong malayo yung time difference of the interview. And at the same time, try again until you get it. So personal sharing before I end. When I received my scholarship grant from Australia, it was not the first time that I applied. I actually failed the first time. So it was in 2015, if you remember my story, it was in 2015 na nag-grow yung interest ko into taking an MA because nga may personal checklist ako. Actually, hindi ko na-achieve yung personal checklist ko. So 28 ko na siya na-achieve. Anyway, so it was not my first time. So the moment na in-approach kami ng mga Australia graduates sa Go Negosyo on helping out on their project, sinabi ni nag-grow na yung interest ko. So, sinabi nung person na graduate na parang, oh, they're open now. Why don't you try it? So, ako naman, I jumped into it right away kasi parang, okay, I wanted to prove that I can tick off my checklist anyway. So, during the time, I invested on an IELTS exam. And it cost around almost 10,000 pesos. And during that time, it was sort of a big investment on my end. I mean, 10,000 is not it's not cheap. And you need to spend a bit of time in terms of reviewing as well. Some even invest on an actual review classes. Ako, hindi na ako nag-review classes. Ang ginawa ko na lang, nag-online na lang ako ng mga mock examinations. Meron namang available online. But if you feel like there's a need for you to do reviews, and if you have resources, go for it. So, nung time na yun, nag-take ako ng IELTS and then nagpasa ako ng application. I did my research. Unfortunately, Australia Awards is one of the most generous, but they require return of service. And the return of service is 1:2. So 1:2 meaning every 1 year na mag-spend ka overseas, you need to stay in your company or institution pagbalik mo for 2 years. So if more than 2 years ka, 4 years yung return of service. Some companies would still do 1:1 na ratio. So some education institutions would require nga 1:3 pa. So depende talaga dun sa personal situation mo. So during the time, aside from the return of service, meron kasing re-entry action plan required from us as part of the Australia Award Scholarship pool. So ano yung re-entry action plan? We call it REAP, R-E-A-P. So yung re-entry action plan is a certain activity that you need to propose to the selection body, something that you will do after kang ma-educate sa Australia. So para siyang project proposal yung time na yon. So during the time, since everything was rushed, I passed a project proposal na somehow ambitious in nature. Na parang save the world type of project na hindi siya talaga feasible, hindi siya sustainable. So during that time, I didn't get in the scholarship. And it was so hard for me to accept because people, my friends, whom I consulted during the application process were rooting for me. Na parang, it's so hard for me to accept na parang, oh, I didn't get in. Oh my God, si Mina hindi siya nakapasa. So during the time, I was just so depressed. And then the next year, I realized, okay, mag-expire na yung IELTS ko. I still have 1 year. Sayang naman yung 10,000 pesos na binayad ko. So, ang ginawa ko, nag-try ulit ako. Sabi ko, sige, wala namang mawawala. Pero dun sa second year na application ko, parang hindi na ako ganun kaganado in terms of, applying. Pero ang ginawa ko, because the first insight that I got from consultation was yung project ko nung first try ko was somehow ambitious. The next project proposal that I did is something more streamlined, smaller in nature, but something very doable and very manageable for someone like me na even ako lang yung mag-manage, kaya ko siyang gawin. And at the same time, I asked my friends and consulted with mentors and asked for support and sort of like sponsorship, not monetary, but like show of support that this is something very relevant right now and something that you really can make your application stand out. So good thing after the second try, I think yun na yung naging edge ko. Parang I was able to streamline the project based also on the requirements of the scholarship grant na binibigay ng Australia Awards. So the second time around, I was able to get it and I was able to attend all of the or comply with all of the pre-departure requirements. My visa was approved, my health check was approved kasi medyo strict sila in terms of like if you had history of TB, so that should also be part of your research. So health check was approved and I was given the visa to leave the Philippines December of 2016. So I think if I didn't prepare that much and if I didn't research that much the second time around or even the first time around, if I didn't collect all of those factors together, baka hindi ko rin siya nakuha because I was just doing it like just passing whatever I want. So research is key, differentiation is key, getting your message across is key, complying to the requirements is key, and identifying whatever you want or your intent is key. So again, my last message is regardless if you're getting into scholarship or having an opportunity to study overseas now and even in the future, at the very least, kung hindi man mag-study, spend at least 6 months in an unusual place. Whether it is in Mindanao, na wala kayong kakilala, or another Asian country, kasi it will really shape you and, provide you with a different point of view. It will shape your mental state, it will actually affect your emotional state, and it will make you stronger and ready to take on the challenge of the world. And once you have done that, like spend at least 6 months or I don't know, maybe 5 years kung PhD man yan, once are able to achieve that, yung personal goals nyo, my personal request to all of you is set aside a piece or a portion of that particular goal for the Philippines. Next slide. Because at the end of the day, I think we always have to go back and think of the Philippines as part of our dream. And at the end of the day, you can't take away the Filipino in you. So yun lang. Thank you very much again, Career and Placement Office, for allowing me to share. If you have specific questions on like deadlines or ano yung requirements, you can actually message me online. I'm willing to give my personal contact details. So it's just an overview. Thank you again, and I hope I made sense.
Thank you so much, Miss Mina Akram. I was supposed to call you Ate. No? Definitely, you really had a very informative and very inspiring talk. I'm sure our students learned a lot, and I'm sure they're also very much inspired. So without further ado, we're gonna move on to our question and answer. So I have a couple of questions. Some of them you have answered already during your talk. How about this one? So any personal tips in terms of, I mean, every scholarship has a different requirement. Like for example, one student wants to apply also in the same Australia Awards. Dun sa REAP, like you said, the first time was too ambitious, and then the next time around was just fit and just right. Ano yung one specific tip that somebody has to remember para ma-ace nila yung REAP na yan?
I think you need to work within your passion. Kasi the first time around, yung pinasa kong proposal was something involving SK, Sangguniang Kabataan, because I was in the Senate during that time. But I didn't have experience being an SK officer. So parang walang personal mag-stake dun sa project na yon. So you need to work within your passion. The next time around, I worked within the context of MSME development because I was in Go Negosyo during that time. I was exposed my work with the Senate. I worked with Senator Bam, who is also an SME champion. So, nung second project na, yun, ini-streamline ko na siya based on what I'm passionate about. So, nung sinusulat ko yung proposal, there's this certain attachment to it na parang, oh my God, I really want this to happen. So, yun, work within your passion. The next one is find your strong, kumbaga parang find where you are strong at. Kasi strong at meaning alam mo yung topic, at the same time, you have enough connections that can actually help you bring that project to life. So, so you need to work within your network. So like, for example, if you are into environment, so nag-volunteer ka ba? Parang it's so odd naman to propose a project na, I mean, not naman na hindi ka nagkikare sa environment, but like it's not really what you are so used to doing in your extra time. So it really depends on what you are really passionate about. So if you want to apply for Australia Awards, another tip that I can give you is, so that's on your side, personal. Pero si Australia Awards, meron siyang certain set of focus areas every year na sineset. So possible na whatever you're passionate about is not aligned with the focus areas that they have set for that particular year. So somehow isuskew mo yung idea mo towards fitting to those industries or categories. So some of the categories na na-include usually are education, so something to do with education, something to do with local economic development, which actually involves MSME development, business modeling, mga ganyan. Some areas include environment, sustainability, So, smarter cities. So, ito yung mga like, so sa mga architecture graduates, like infrastructure, environment, sustainable environment, so things like that. So, aside from your personal passion, align mo din siya sa requirements ng actual na hinihingi ng Australia Awards. So, yun. For other, I think sa Erasmus Mundus, Shivning, and other scholarships, they don't require really a project proposal, but it's really heavy on the specialization naman. So like yung combination of the specialization and work experience.
Mhm. Just a follow-up doon lang, I'm quite curious kasi sa Thailand, iba rin yung process ng scholarship. What they require is research proposal. Sa Australia Awards ba, hiningan ka rin ng research proposal o hindi?
Hindi. So what I did is master's by coursework. So I didn't have research during my time. Pero optional siya. You can go for research track. So it really depends on what you want. And on what you want, yun yung i-work on mo. Kasi there's also certain parang set of requirements, additional requirements for like something more than the usual coursework lang. So merong master's by research offer, meron ding PhD offers sa Australia Awards. If some of you are interested to eventually look into that after nyo mag-local na MA, pwede rin naman. So yun, wala akong research kasi it's really more practical. And so nung time na I was looking into a course, I was actually considering Sydney. During that time, University of Sydney, they also have a good business program. But I chose Swinburne because I did my research. And yung program kasi ng University of Sydney is more on parang MBA-like. So hindi yun yung interest ko eh. So I'm more into like practical back-end application. So kaya entrepreneurship yung kinuha ko. And when I did my study in Swinburne, it's really more of para kami nagbo-bootcamp as startups. So parang binibigyan kami ng challenge, magpo-put up kami ng mga fake or like prototypes ganyan. So yun yung mga ginagawa ko nung MA ko.
Wow, so interesting. One of our students, si Mark Villaverde, asks, what questions should we ask ourselves more so we can elicit a picture of our brand? Because importanteng makilala natin ang ating sarili.
Okay, I guess going back to my answer to the first one, it's really lying within your passion. So like what you are passionate about. And kumbaga, at the same time, ano ba yung na-envision mong position mo in the future? So are you the type na parang who would wanna climb up the corporate ladder? So maybe you need to position yourself into the leadership track. So are you into development work? So probably you need to be, you need to ask yourself, how much do I love volunteering and, working with people from different walks of life. So it really depends on what your interests are. So ask yourself, what makes you happy at the end of the day? Like what set of activities make you happy? And through that, streamline that to something of your profile. What's your persona? So kapag na-identify mo na on like your interests, hobbies, and things that make you happy, usually you'll sort of like picture personal identification of what you can bring into the interviewers if ever. So yun. And don't be afraid if it's something unusual. Like for example, if you're into like mobile games or you're a hardcore gamer, maybe there are certain aspects within the gaming industry that actually makes you more strategic kasi 'di ba puro strategy yung games. So probably that's something that you can highlight na, I'm very strategic because I can finish any level in a mobile game. Things like that. So ano lang siya, anything unusual or hindi mo ginagawa, it's usually not your personal brand.
Okay, and another question. This one is quite tricky, no? So, do you encourage our students or graduates to apply for a scholarship immediately after graduating from bachelor's, or work muna for at least a year?
Personally, I would say work muna. Find experience somewhere so that Actually, mas ma-assess mo kasi after working, ano ba yung path that you want to take into when you go for higher education. Kasi ang pitfall kasi of going straight from college is you might want to take something that's very aligned to what you have studied in undergrad. And you might be parang not allowing yourself to learn something or a new skill. So I would personally say go for work experience. But there are also exceptions. If you are into the academic track, probably maybe it's recommended that you go for higher education if you can, like go for it right away. Either way, gaining a higher education under your name would still have its benefits. Siguro ang next na lang na tip dyan is some or most scholarships kasi abroad. Sa Philippines kasi yung iba, they don't require work experience. But based on my research, most of the organizations na nag-offer ng scholarships abroad would require work experience. So kahit minimum amount lang of months that you spend somewhere, if you have volunteer experiences, that can also be added to your profile. So yun, check nyo na lang whichever you are looking into. But educational institutions overseas, they value work experience so much.
Thank you. And another question by Mr. Villaverde. Do you have any platform for international opportunities that you highly recommend for us to continuously check? Meron ba tayong mga portal kung saan nandun yung mga scholarship offerings?
I think merong Facebook group eh. Pero sa Australia Awards may Facebook group. So meron may mga like nagpo-post doon ng mga inquiries, tapos nag-help out yung mga one another in terms of the application. I'm not sure if there are like yung lahat. Not really sure. Kasi ako, I only discovered it from friends and then my own research. But this time around, baka feeling ko may potential na may mga Facebook groups. So search na lang, siguro Shielding Scholars Philippines. So most likely you'll see communities that are organizing mga sessions, info sessions. Tapos, yung mga university offered naman, like straight from university institutions, actually, halos lahat ng international institutions would have scholarship offerings. It's just a matter of getting into yung sa mga tabs nila sa mga website nila and really finding saan ba pwedeng mag-fit yung profile nyo. So yun. But for Australia Awards, I can speak for it. We have info sessions every now and then wherein we invite yung Australia Embassy to speak about the opportunity, at the same time testimonials from a couple of alumni who have done it already.
Okay. And then another question, this one. What happens if, for whatever reason, you may not be able to complete your degree program? Do you need to pay anything or is there any penalty?
Okay, so...
Na-homesick. Sige.
Na-homesick. It depends. It depends on the contract. So usually scholarship grants would have like a contract or a living document that you need to sign. Parang commitment form of the certain parang expectations from you being granted a scholarship. So some institutions, again, I mentioned kanina, may return of service wherein you need to go back to the Philippines, serve the country. Some institutions would allow you to work part-time. Some institutions would actually give you an opportunity to have a working visa in the country where you are. So yun. So it really depends on the contract that you sign or the commitment that you sign. For, alam ko, most institutions would actually ask you to pay back what they have invested in you. So again, it's hindi siya biro. So once you have decided to really go for higher education, specifically outside the Philippines, you need to be ready to complete and abide with the timelines that they have set for you.
Thank you.
Unless self-paying ka. So I guess kung self-paying ka, I mean, okay lang. Pero kung scholarships, there might be repercussions and penalties that you might incur when you don't finish the degree. Unless na lang siguro like super like kunyari, probably health reasons, things like that.
Mm.
So that those are something that you can negotiate with the institution gave you the grant.
Okay. Another question. Normally po bang scholarship, is it tied with a particular course? What if during the middle part of my studies, I decided to shift to another course? Will the scholarship be forfeited? Is it allowed? Or ano pong ano?
Again, it's a case-to-case basis depending on the scholarship grant that you are able to win or get. So some scholarships would actually allow you to have the flexibility in terms of choosing your subjects or choosing a specialization in the middle of the program. Some would actually say na no, whatever you have set in the beginning, at the beginning of the application, yun na yung pwede mo lang i-take. Hindi ka pwede magpalit. So, in terms of like consequences, kung if ever na mag-shift ka, again, that depends on that contract that we were talking about earlier na depende dun sa commitment mo. Kung ano yung naset dun sa commitment na yun yung susundin usually. Usually kasi yung mga scholarship naman, they usually provide a manual wherein you can check all of the, details. Parang policy workbook na whatever you thought of for sure, naisip na nila yan at nalagay na nila in a manual. So wala ka talagang lusot. At the end of the day, most of these scholarships naman are giving you access to not really education but opportunities. And there's no reason for you to veer away with the goal of finishing it. So again, it depends. Some probably pag mga university grants, baka may flexibility ka to change course. As long as it's properly you properly inform the institution, pwedeng ganon. But based dun sa mga experiences ng friends ko, they usually stick kung ano yung course nila from the start, yun na yung sa end. Again, if you have the capacity to self-pay, then probably that's an option that you can do so. But it's very expensive.
And siguro our last question will be, what have you learned after your 20-month stay in Australia about yourself that you never thought that's part of you?
Ano ba? Ang hirap ng tanong. Well, one thing that I've learned is, siguro practically, kaya ko pala magluto. Kasi hindi ako nagluluto dati. Like, I can only fry things, hotdog, eggs, ganyan. Pero yun, kaya ko pala magluto. The next, pero siguro more substantially, ang natutunan ko is, yun nga, parang, you cannot really compare experiences. Like, it will always be different. And you can only define your own version of success because not would have the same kind of experience, childhood, growing up to you. The next thing is, isang natutunan ko is gaining respect for people who work in hospitality. I think yun yung isang sa malaking bagay na naiuwi ko when I went back to the Philippines. Kasi I was able to experience working for a cafe in Melbourne. And during that time, I was literally wiping tables, getting orders, picking up orders from the kitchen and bringing it to customers, cleaning floors, cleaning toilets. So, something that I never imagined myself doing. Kasi, syempre, there's this certain level of comfort din, no? Gumraduate ka with degree and then you have honors, diba? Parang, I won't be able to get into hospitality work. Pero yun, I guess yung culture din kasi ng first world countries, developed countries, iba eh. So parang they treat any job with high respects. But in the Philippines, unfortunately, we are brought to look at them not the same way as we look up to the professional ones. So, ayun, high respect for people in the hospitality industry because they give so much and they deserve our sweet words and our understanding because at the end of the day, they just really want to earn something for themselves. So, yun. So I hope you also treat all the ates and kuyas around you with so much respect.
Thank you so much. So there you have it. Thank you at Mina and to all our students for those questions. I'm afraid we have run out of time. Truly a very inspiring talk and a very informative one. So our speaker gave us valuable tips to remember in our search for scholarships abroad. There are many scholarships available for us Filipinos, but it is a matter of narrowing down the different choices available to us. So remember to do your research, read about the different advantages and technicalities of various scholarships, and see whether it fits your criteria. Determine your negotiables and non-negotiables. I like what Miss Akram said, that you need to have a series of plans. So do not just have a one plan, prepare for plan B and C and so on. The point is, it's better to be ready. Be flexible. Remember, applying for a scholarship is like entering a competition. You have to stand out during the application process. So determine and develop your own branding and see what value you bring to the table. It is not only what you will be getting, but also what you can offer to them. You have to know and assess yourself very well. Like what our speaker said, it's going to be you who will be deciding your own path. The main message is that more than anything else, there is value in experiencing another world, whether in pursuit of higher studies or not. You will grow mentally, intellectually, and emotionally. The world is your oyster, guys. So be prepared to have your own experience, which cannot be compared to hers as well. And as you have furthered yourself in terms of education or experience, please do not forget our beloved country, Philippines. So very informative talk, very inspiring. Thank you so much. And there you have it. That concludes our pep talk for today. And in behalf of the FEU Career and Placement Office, we would like to thank Ms. Mina Akram for her precious time, and also to our students, our faculty members, and employees for joining us this afternoon. We do hope that you've learned a lot from this webinar. I hope you will join us again in our future Pep Talk episode. Our next topic is how to be an online creator. That will be on October 14, 2020, Wednesday. Just check the Career and Placement Office Facebook page from time to time for updates. And as we end, may we invite everyone to join us in singing the FEU hymn.